Okay, so if you would introduce yourself.
I'm Josh Rhodes, and I am one of the founders of Mobile Makerspace. I was at the first meeting.
And what sort of area is your expertise or your passion in?
My passion is CNC, but I don't get to do that very much. But it's the passionate thing for me about a makerspace is that we open up the avenue, the way that you can do something, and that's in generic terms. And sometimes you don't have a tool. A lot of times at home you don't have a tool. But sometimes at the makerspace we don't have a tool, and when we get that tool, it opens up a whole new corner of being able to make things. Suddenly we can do these things that we couldn't do before. And so I like to make tools, to be honest with you.
So what kinds of things? Like, what kind of tools do you make?
Mostly tables. But tables and storage, and I'm working on a control panel for the CNC upgrade that we just purchased. So.
Right. And have you always been somebody who does things with their hands? Have you always been a maker of some sorts?
Yes. I wrote a post on my blog several years back about how my grandfather and both my grandfathers and a lot of my uncles were makers before it was the term maker. And my grandfather was a pipe fitter and a welder down here at the shipyard, but he also did that at home and worked on lawnmowers a lot and just all of his cars and that sort of thing. So I've always been kind of into it, yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you remember with fondness, having been an impressive or project that made you proud?
I really like the woodworking table that I made out there. It's not as good as it used to be because now we have the soft stop that has a nice table as well. But it's still useful because we've got 7 or 8 tools all on one table, and you can use all of them. So I like that project. I had a class where I taught about woodworking. That was a fun project, and I put it on Instructables, and it got a lot of attention on Instructables. And it's just about making a rabbet jointed box with a bottom. We also made a lot of them with lids that slid in. So that was fun to work on. Probably gonna teach that class again soon.
All right. And I could ask you, do you have any failures, and how did you deal with them?
Yeah, we were talking about. Should I go get it?
You can show it if you want to. You don't have to. I was just kind of making. I think it's fun to sometimes share some of that experience.
I made this before Barnes & Noble's Mini Maker Fair in November, the night before, and I was doing pretty good, but as you can see, the hole on the back doesn't line up with the axle like it's supposed to. And then secondly, you've got one side that has the air intake for the squirrel cage fan, and then the other side is not the intake. And then what I ended up doing, I wanted it to push this way up through this hole, but I ended up gluing it the wrong way, and so the vanes go the wrong direction. So
how do you recoup from a failure like that?
Well, you grab more material and build another one, because I glued this one together. It was very tricky to get it to go together. But this is cool though because it uses a living hinge joint on either side. And then I use the tabs. This is all on a laser cutter. And it was meant to blow ping pong balls, but I never got to use it for that yet since it failed. Since I glued it in backwards. Yeah.
And so what would you say to people who are looking to get into doing more makerly things, and how would you encourage them not to be derailed by mistakes?
Right. I mean, you just you're gonna make mistakes in life. It's gonna happen, but that doesn't mean you should stop. And if you want to get more into making, the thing to do is to do some Google searches, look for the websites that list maker spaces, and look in your area in the maps to see if there's one nearby. That's one good thing to do. I mean, another good thing is to read. I read like crazy. I don't know if other makers do that, but I am constantly reading something about somebody building something. From CNC machines or homemade table saws or just every kind of thing. So.
All right. And so who belongs at a makerspace and who doesn't?
If you are going to, if you're going to spend time in a makerspace, you're going to have somewhat of an open mind. I mean, you don't have to let anybody into the place to do anything that they want to necessarily, but as long as it's legal and it's not hurting somebody, that's our rule. I mean, as long as it's legal, it's not hurting somebody, and it fits in the place, you can bring it here and work on it. But you know, the guy next to you, his project may not appeal to you at all. I don't have a good example of that, but you know, he might be working on something that you totally would never want to work on, and that's okay. You gotta be open-minded and let other people be who they're going to be at the makerspace, because you're going to have disagreements when you end up trying to work on the same thing. It happens all the time, but you just got to have some grace and some you know, a good demeanor about taking criticism sometimes.
All right. And if somebody were to come into this space and wanted to do, I don't know, like puppets, or
That would be fine. We have a sewing machine in the other room. That would be just fine.
and how about
And I wouldn't care for that at all.
how about some more esoteric, like computer programming?
Oh, absolutely. We have people that come and do that sometimes. There was a guy in here a couple months ago working on Raspberry Pi project for his degree at USA. So, yeah, that's no problem at all. We got a big pile of computers. Somebody could come in and cluster them all and make a really slow cluster.
Start up Skynet.
Yeah,
Nobody noticed.
That's right.
All right,
Program
so
some AI.
the question I like to ask people is, as I go forward, are there any things about other spaces you're curious about that you would like to learn?
I've actually visited a couple of other spaces, but only a couple. Mainly TXRX in Houston.
Yeah.
Huge place. Huge. Oh my gosh, you get lost in there and never find your way out. It's 27,000 square feet, something like that. But I wonder how they bring in a lot of people, I guess. Yeah, I wonder how they draw in so many people. You have 300 members. I think that's what he said at TXRX, which Houston's a much bigger town.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple spaces that have membership in the hundreds.
Right.
And one of the things, like, I'm always curious. Like, I've seen a couple spaces that are happy at under 45 members, and they don't intend to grow. Do you think your space is looking to grow?
Yes, we want to grow.
Okay.
Yes, we are always talking about it, but we haven't quite found our way to it yet. So, but there's thousands of people that make and craft things in Mobile, and we just haven't been able to get those people in here.
Bridge that gap.
Yeah.
All right. And is there anything about what you do or what the space enables you to do that you would like to share that I haven't asked? I always like to ask this question because I don't know always what to ask. What's important to you and what needs to be mentioned that I haven't asked
Well,
about?
the best thing about this makerspace or other makerspaces, unless the people are mean there, which hopefully they're not, the best thing is learning. The best thing is when you need to learn something and another member sits down and helps you learn how to do that. And we do that a lot here. And there's things that I don't know that, but maybe I know somebody who knows that, and I can get them to help you get them to help teach you. So, coming into this, I didn't know how to run a laser cutter. I had a vague idea, I didn't know how saw stop works, which I had to read the manual and teach everybody else. But anyway,
There's a little bit of that too in
Yeah.
spaces. Learn as you
definitely
go.
read the manual. But or I didn't know how to use a Raspberry Pi. That's something that I learned after I got here, that Rick helped me learn. And also working on Arduinos, we had a class for Arduinos, and not that I've built anything with them. Yes, I have. I built a jib. I did these parts in my backyard. These aluminum bits.
Yeah.
And what you have in there is a skate bearing. And the funny thing is, these bolts are actually the most expensive part, because to get one that'll just wobble that much, you have to get a precision shoulder bolt that's exactly 8 millimeters, and that's $13 a piece. I think it's something like that. It's more than a couple of dollars a piece for a bolt, and I needed 6 of them. But like I said, I made these aluminum pieces in my backyard, and then since coming to the makerspace, these poles became available, which makes it where I can have it at shorter. You can store it at a shorter length, but I can keep it. I can still have a 9-foot boom. And so then down here we have 2 hobby servos that make up a motion rig for the camera, and they're controlled by this Arduino. And the funny thing is, when I have this balanced, I have all these clamps sitting here. When I have this balanced, if I set this clamp right here, the jib starts going down. It's that precise. It's pretty cool. I also I use a bearing right here, a needle bearing, which is a flat pancake in 3 pieces. And when it's all set up, you can just touch it with your finger and it'll start doing that number. So it's pretty fun. But I've used it a couple of times with the camera on the end and the motion setup. Kids find it a lot of fun. But
So what kinds of things do you do with it?
when I made it, all of my friends were into making movies way back there 10 years ago. But they've all moved. So
You need to
I
start.
never made any movies with it.
You need to start yourself with a YouTube channel and start making.
Jib movies? Yeah. It just never really caught me that hard to make movies.
I think that's kind of it.
Okay.